Hello and welcome to another version of AVLI AP Computer Science. My name is John Maxwell. Last night, or 2 nights ago rather, in class, I introduced you to the Computer Science A Java Quick Reference with the exhortation to download it at least, if not print it out and keep it handy as you work through the year. It is notable that this quick reference will be given to you on the exam, and perhaps by the time you've used it all year long, you might not even need to refer to it. But if you go into the exam and you don't remember something about string, which happened in the fall, you may find it handy. So it will be there with you on the exam. A quick review of it reveals that there are a few methods that the AP Computer Science folks want you to know and to be able to use in code or examine in code. And the first is the topic of this week's module, which is the string class. And you can see a number of methods there which we'll work with tonight or in this class. First is a constructor that allows you to create a string object. Another one is a length, which will return the number of characters in a string. One other is a substring method that takes from an index. Recall that indices begin at 0 and end at 1 minus the length. So if a string is 12 characters in length, the positions that are occupied are 0 through 11. So this substring method takes from a particular index and ending at an index minus 1. So remember, the minus index 1 frequently throws people off. So you just have to be aware of that. There is another substring method here which takes from until the length. And so it's from a particular index all the way to the end. And you may note that there are two methods with the substring method, each of them returning a string. This is called overloading methods. And overloading methods is when they have the same name but different order, type, or number of parameters. It is useful to note that overloading does not differentiate by what is being returned. So that will cause a compiler error. There is another very handy method called indexOf, which returns the first occurrence of the parameter string str. In the string, it will return it as an int, which is an index number. But critically to understand, it's returning -1 if that string is not found. So the three other methods that we'll cover later, one is equals, comparing two strings, and another is compare to. And compare to allows you to alphabetize a list. So if one string comes before another, you can assume that you can put it in the list first. So compare to is essential to really basically comparing two strings. There's another method which is new to the AP subset this year called split, which will split the string around matches in a given expression. So if you want to split a string, which is a long line, by spaces, you can do that, and it will return a array of strings, each of them the words without the spaces. Rounding out the quick reference, you'll see something we previewed the very first week, integer min and max value, and parseInt, which is a very useful way of taking a string and converting it into an int. There's more parsing than you can imagine going on, particularly in the web domain of programming. Likewise, the double class has a min and a max value as well, but you don't really need to know it for the APCS. We did feature it week one, but it also has a parse double. So if a number is being represented as a string and you want it to be represented as a number, you'd use the parse double. The math class is very useful. Returns the absolute value of an integer and a double, raises a base to a power, and determines the square root of a method. Know that when you put like something like math.pow in a calculation, if you want that to be done first, you'll have to use parentheses. The mathematical precept PEMDAS, does not really totally apply to the evaluation of expressions in Java, because raising to a power is done using a function, math.pow. Array list we'll skip over because that's a second semester topic, but below file as well, second semester, we have a lowdown of the scanner class, and here's one that takes a file for reading, and we eventually will. Number of students expressed some difficulty reading ints and doubles. There's a next int and a next double. And then there's a next line, which captures an entire line of information. That may work, but it captures it in the form of a string. So if you use next line, you have to go back up and use the parse methods of the integer and double class to convert them into numbers. And next reads whatever the string is. So next, if you had a line of characters with spaces, what it'll do is it'll grab string by string. Boolean has next, asks, is there another item in the file or input source to read? And we'll deal with this when we deal with file reading in the second semester. So my advice is to get a copy of the Java Quick Reference, download it for your use, print it, maybe even more. It may come in handy. Now, we all know that Java API consists of a lot more methods than this, particularly in the string class, but in most of these classes as well. The math class is an extraordinary number of methods that will do advanced calculations like arc, cosine, and other stuff that you'll recognize from math classes. So the API is pretty big, but in order to limit what you need to know, the College Board has provided this quick reference to the essential methods that it will be testing on. So try to use these methods. It's a strong recommendation. And lastly, you'll find this quick reference, which is referred to in this week's College Board video AP Classroom. It will be attached to that assignment, but you can easily just search for it and get it on your own. So we're going to move over to something else that we did last night. We covered the creation of a project, okay? And I can see that I've jazzed this up in response to some student inquiries, but let's go. String name, next line, grabs the whole line. You could also use next, but that would grab string by string. And Y uses the scanner next int. And so I'm going to run this and show what I intend to do. Here it's asking without a prompt, enter in a string, and that's in relation to line 6. So I enter that in, and it asks for a number, 8. I'll just put a random number. Y is not used in the program. So what's happening here? Well, I've entered a complete string, my name, John Maxwell, and you'll note that there's a space in the middle of my name between my first and last names. So I look for the index of that space and store it in an integer value called pos. Recall that if index of does not find a space, it will return -1. So I'm putting a little if statement here that is saying if pos is greater than or equal to 0, which is the starting index of a string, then what I'm going to do is break it down into first name and last name. Well, all strings begin at 0, and pos is the location of the space, so I'll just put pos in, and recall that particular substring method takes from 0 to, in this case, 4 minus 1. It'll take the 0, 1, 2, 3 positions in the string. Okay, the space is in position 4. And so, is it in? Okay. So yeah, the last name here is name dot substring 5, and that is 4 plus 1. I could even fix that by saying pos plus 1. I could use some math because I don't know exactly where the space is if I were processing numerous names. And this is not a bulletproof program because many people's names have lots of spaces in them. 2 first names, number of last names. This code is not going to work in all situations, but it does for a simple name like John Maxwell. And what happens is there's no space, right? So let me enter it in and just enter again, testing out that pos plus 1 idea. We'll put 8 and it'll still output pos plus 1 the same. So I had hard-coded 5, and that was sort of a mistake queued to my name where the M is in the 5 position. Okay, so let me run this again and show you what happens when I enter something without the space. Okay, and we'll enter 8 again. No space. So the if statement cuts the opportunity for further processing, which will really cause an error because pos is -1. Had I not couched it or put it within an if statement, we would have had an out of index error, and it displays the else clause. Now, one thing that I'm just going to kind of add, wherever you see these, okay, these open curly braces, set braces, whatever you call it. Notice how I highlight 1. Most IDEs will faintly or in some ways more explicitly highlight the closing brace, so it's a good thing. You know, take a look. The semicolon, which I hear from students is like, oh, I just finally got like the hang of the semicolon. Well, here's another thing. Where a statement or a line ends with an open brace, there's not a semicolon. Look, none. But every other line does have a semicolon. So for now, you can run with that rule. And this is a look at index of and substring, which is the functions that I want you to particularly pay attention to because they're typically tested. So I'm going to move over to something else that we did. We did a little coding bat, and I did 5 problems. I'll probably only do 3 here, and I will basically share them. And if you watch the video, you get 3 freebies. if you were there last night, you get 5. Okay, so let me just look at hello name. I'm going to get rid of the answer that I put in last night or the year before or some other time. All right, I think it's essential that you read the problem. So, given the string name example Bob, return a greeting in the form of hello Bob. And these are sample calls: hello name Bob, hello name Alice, hello name X, and the expected outcome. So what I'm going to do is just provoke a mistake, hello name. And where am I getting name? Name is what comes in, also known as a parameter to this method, hello name. And what gets returned is a string. So if a return is specified, in this case string, but it could be an int, a double, etc. Anything except a void, you have to have a return statement in the method. So I'm just going to return name and hit go, and wow, what a bad programmer, right? It says I returned Bob, but I should have returned hello Bob. So let me use concatenation, which is the exclamation point, to add that and say, wow, I've got the exclamation point, but I don't have the word hello, so I'm still all wrong. And finally, I'll put hello, and this should work, but you'll see it doesn't. Well, there's a little problem. There's no space between hello and Bob like it should be, so I'll just hard code a space there and hit go. You have to do 20 of them. I say I can tell when you use the internet to find the solutions. They're out there. Okay, don't. You won't learn, but I can tell anyways. It's embarrassing for both of us. So let's go to Java again and pick out another one. Okay, I think did make out word last night. Okay, so I'm just going to break that up and say, given an out string length 4, you got to read these problems looking for clues. The out string is always 4, such as angle brace, close, angle brace, close, angle brace. But you didn't know they called those angle braces. And a word, right? String word and string out. Return a new string where the word is in the middle of the out string. Example, angle brace, word, closing angle brace. Use the substring method to extract the starting index at I and going up to but not including index j. Okay, so, well, return is the key, okay, because a string is specified, and I'm going to return out dot substring, and which position? Starting at 0. It's 4 characters, so it's in 0, 1, 2, 3. You can count them with your fingers. You can write them down on a piece of paper. So 3 won't be included. No, 2. It'll just be the 0 and 1, because remember, it's the end index minus 1. Plus, is there a space there? No. Word. And where did I get word? Right here. Don't make up variables. There's one provided in the parameter list. Plus out dot substring starting at index 3. Semicolon. Now, these are hard-coded indices, but let's see if I got it right. Okay. No. Because I only got what? Starting at index 2. I only got one angle brace. So, my bad. All right now. So this features the use of the substring method to break apart strings in a way that Makes sense. Now, I want to back up and say makeout word seems a little strange. This is a site that's run by a Stanford University professor called Nick Parlante. You probably saw him in the video or will. They're college level type weirdness. So they're great code. They're used all over the place, but they can get a little weird. Okay, let's do another one. Last one. String. Um, first two. Guess I solved it. Let's get rid of it. I think we covered this last night. So, given a string, return a string made of its first two characters. So the word hello yields he. If the string is shorter than length 2, return whatever there is. And an empty string yields an empty string. So if the empty string given by quote unquote is there, then it's empty. Okay, so whoops, highlighted something there. Well, again, a string is returned. Okay, so I'm going to start with the return statement. Well, I won't. I think I got to check the length. If str, where did that come from? That's the parameter, dot length is greater than or equal to 2. Okay. Let me just close it by saying return str dot substring 0 comma 2. Recall that it will take only the indices in the 0 and 1 position. So I'll test that out. Okay. And I misspelled length, so it needs a G there. Let's test it out. Missing return statement. Well, it doesn't believe the if statement will be reached, so I want to just put return str because it's not greater than string, and so just return whatever it is. Boom. Okay, couple of typos, everybody makes them. Don't get frustrated. It's easier for me to fix them and see them right away. But those are a couple of coding bat problems that, if you weren't in the class, will help you along the way. I'm going to conclude by saying a little bit about a method, right? We previewed and talked about them, though we haven't begun to use them in our classes and in our projects. A method is the basic ingredient of a software system. It's the way they communicate with each other. Word goes and calls a method and says, tidy up this document, I'll return it to Windows so you can print it. And so Windows will receive the document and print it. The software system uses methods and different objects to differentiate roles and responsibilities in a system. Brief review. These are called parameters inside the parentheses. There may or may not be parameters in all methods, and this is the return. And in this case, it's a string, but it could be any object type or primitive data type. And public indicates that it can be used anywhere in the software system if you know how to use the method. So this is a little bit more. I love the idea that Coding Bat gives you practice implementing methods, because that is a lot of what happens on part 2 of the exam, which consists of 4 questions, maybe 2 or 3 parts each. And typically what they'll ask you to do is implement a method, aka Coding Bat. The methods will be contextualized to the problem that you're given, and the reading will take a lot more than a paragraph. You'll be reading a full length of narrative describing the problem, but in essence, you'll be implementing methods in most cases of part two. So this is going to give you good baby step practice and really hone in on those string skills. Reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for watching.